There's the live stream link for those of you that might want closed captions. Most of this will be in text as well as in voice, but we'll also have it closed captioned on our YouTube live stream. Okay, we have 1 minute to go, but before we go, I'm going to demonstrate a huge tech troubleshooting technique called building on the fly. I'm going to res an object right in front of you because Erik at his university has a lot of things that are blocked. So I'm going to res right in front of you a big box where I can put his slides since he's unable to do it himself. And Nellie and Fran, maybe we'll just go ahead and start now, and I'll res it as I'm talking because it is the top of the hour. We want to get started. So let me start with my speakeasy here, and then I'll demonstrate my troubleshooting. Welcome, everyone, to our Virtual Worlds Education Consortium Metaverse Expert Series. And we're so glad that you've joined us today for a very interesting presentation and discussion. I'm the host today, Valerie Hill, Val Librarian in Virtual Worlds. And for those of you that are new, here's the website to the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium, VWEC Consortium.org. You can find VWEC on many social media sites, and I'll drop those also in the local chat on Linktree. We're pleased to offer our expert series presentations, usually twice a month, both in text and chat. The text for all of you that use voice is shared on our YouTube live stream. It's right there in the local chat. And great, now we can hear us on Zoom. I'm so pleased that we're part of the Virtual Worlds MOOC 2024, and hopefully people will be able to see what we do here at the consortium by being a participant on the MOOC. There's the MOOC schedule. It's going on all month long in August. So bookmark that schedule and you can see other presentations about teaching and learning in the metaverse. Medi is going to share the slide deck right now for those of you that want to view it in Google Docs. We'd like you to find out how you came to find out about our presentation today. How did you find out about the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium? Right in front of Medi, on the ground, you'll see a planter. It's our survey plant. There's a quick survey that will help us. If you'd fill that out, feel free to send any comments to us that you have. So now I'm very pleased to introduce our metaverse expert speaker to you, Dr. Erik Moore, who is a cyber security and data centers expert at a large suburban school district. He teaches cybersecurity at the graduate level at Regis University in Denver. He is the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Colloquium for Information Systems Security Education. And Erik is the chair of the IFIP World Information Security Conference, which met in Copenhagen this year. His 3D education builds in virtual worlds have supported higher education and K-12 programs within the United States and abroad. While his PhD is in cybersecurity, and he holds a master's degree in telecommunications, his first graduate degree is a Master of Fine Arts, working as a professor of fine arts for about 10 years, teaching commercial and fine arts in both digital and traditional media. Erik's peer-reviewed cybersecurity research works to understand and enhance the lives of those who work, learn, and live in cyberspace, with an emphasis on cyber defense teams. Erik has just moved to Seattle University this year, so he's getting settled in, and that's why we're having voice problems in Second Life today. He's blocked behind a firewall. So we're demonstrating that technology is always changing, and we're troubleshooting even as we go along today. In today's talk, you will discover how educational projects in the virtual worlds can be sustainable through examples of project continuity. And to kick off our discussion in resilience of organization in Second Life and elsewhere in cyberspace, Erik wants to tell the story of his own efforts. So as I said, I want all of you to jot down notes, questions as we go along, because at the end, we're going to dig deeper into concepts surrounding archival and sustainability in virtual environments. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to pass the mic, which is not working, over to Erik Moore. I will be reading for him, and we will be tech troubleshooting as we go. So take it away, Erik, and I'm going to fix the slides as Erik is speaking. I'm just going to put this up over your heads, and I'll get this going in just a moment as I see what Erik is saying, so we can also troubleshoot voice. Erik says he started off making the Regis University virtual campus in 2009. And when you view the slides in the slide deck, you'll be able to see the example. I'm going to put the first one right up here in Second Life. You can see I'm creating a prim. That's what we call this piece of wood that I'm putting out here, and I'll make it a little larger so that it covers up our other slide a bit better. Let's see if his slide will come up here. Looks like I've lost my first one, but I'll try this one. We'll get there. Regis University allowed Erik to make the campus for the whole institution since it was their very first foray into virtual worlds. But the primary reason that he was there was to design a security operations center for their cybersecurity program. He's placed the link to all of his slides in the local chat, so you can pull them up, but I'll make this one larger. The image you see above now is a design for that based on a space that Regis acquired around 2009. And once they had a working cyber training space in the virtual world, Regis actually built the world in real life in Denver, Colorado. The odd thing is that the real life campus has been closed, but he now still has the virtual campus in his Second Life inventory. So sometimes VR is more resilient than Second Life. And then if we look at the next image, you'll see more of that Regis campus that exists only in the virtual world. And there was an amphitheater, which you can see on this slide, I hope, as I'm trying to get the slides as I res them on a prim. I see a beautiful amphitheater, and there was signage. So you can see what was built for the university. So students from other programs could come to experience it, and applicants could be directed from here to the web application. Because of changes with funding at Regis University, after a few years, they closed down the sim. And I know many of you sitting here in the audience have been through similar experiences where universities have left a virtual world. But you can see a few more pictures of the campus in the next few slides. This speaks to digital and virtual world archival, the importance of capturing images and machinima. The next group to pick up these objects was Denver University on Science Island. So Erik is illustrating the fact that we can share these virtual world assets and collaborate across communities. This was located on Science Island 2, near Science Friday, in the Science Sims of Second Life. It was a data center that students would go through for training, and you can see that on the slide above us, where students can sit, move around in 3D, and interact. Capital Technical University courses have used these sims too. If you were to walk into this simulation, you'd be able to walk all around those long tables and the circular seating area, walk right up to the slides, and interact with all of the content. But at that time, the CTU was not supporting it. As we've discussed in other lectures, boutique technologies are often hard for education IT departments to support because they require specialized skills. So let's go to the next slide. I can see here that it says Science Island, University of Denver, and Idaho State in 2010. After a while, Erik moved on to Adams 12 five-star schools, and they supported the work also. He brought some ready-made work with him and kept refining it and adding builds. So this speaks to the constant updating of technology, the resiliency of virtual world projects, as well as archival. Adams 12 needed virtual classrooms of the future to plan out for a major multi-million-dollar renovation of their district across 40 schools. So we designed in Second Life, and they also became real space. These real-world classrooms are functioning today. Some people use that term digital twin when you build something both in the physical world and in the virtual world. After Erik left Adams 12, though, the funding dried up. Another problem that many of us have experienced in virtual environments for education. But Erik had been saving everything in his inventory as he had been building, so the objects were not lost. And then, with the help of the Virtual Worlds Education Consortium team, Erik made contact with other groups. And this collaboration is critical. We cannot work alone in virtual environments. It's impossible to be isolated. Curious George from Caltech offered to host space so that CapTech could continue using it for their students. A great example of all of you sitting in this circle and how important the networking and the connections to communities is when you're teaching and learning in virtual worlds. Then, Norwich University hosted space and funded a significant development effort based on this existing collateral. So let's move on to the next slide. And you can see Erik sitting in the data center right there. The idea that an avatar is a real person and these builds in the metaverse are real places. And I think a huge takeaway for me as he's talking is that he saved his content in his inventory to continue it, rebuild it, repurpose it, and move it to other universities and communities. Here's a shot of Adams 12 and Capital Technical University in 2013. That's over 10 years ago. So you can see how important this archival process actually is. And here is the build at Caltech with George Jorvalski, who works at Caltech and has the simulation island called VRTEC. Pardon my phone. Digital culture all the time. All right, so let me move on to the next slide. Norwich University, 2023. Now, Seattle University, right now, is setting up a space in Second Life where we will be taking on a new development project to continue advancing this type of simulation work for cybersecurity education. Each institution had buy-in, as long as Erik was in the relationship to do the development work. But without sustainable support and skill in the local team, the projects did not continue beyond the relationship with him. So it was important that Erik retained the objects in his inventory, so projects did not have to start over from scratch. Each group supported the continued development. And this speaks to his title, Project Resiliency. This at least lays out one journey where a project for resilience is necessary. And that was in his title description, how today we can learn about how educational projects in virtual worlds can be sustainable through examples of project continuity. And many of you probably have similar stories if you've been in Second Life long enough. Can we have organizational resilience in some ways that continue through gaps of support? Erik says, yes. And that's what he's sharing today with some insight on organizational resiliency. Sustainability has been a huge topic both in the physical world and in the virtual world. Because Erik does not have voice here today, he says, I'd like to have the discussion, hand the discussion off to Val, and I will catch all your comments in the stream afterwards. So you can tell we have had to do some troubleshooting on the fly. I'm going to move this slide back behind the other. I created that right here as we all were speaking. Those in Zoom can see the power of virtual worlds that you can build right on the fly. You can troubleshoot with each other with voice and juggle all of these multimedia tools. So let me go back to my speakeasy. You've given us a lot to think about sustainability through organizational resiliency and project continuity. For me, I talk a lot about digital citizenship, the metaverse, and changing literacy, and I often mention that most content is now born digital. That's huge. Erik says, thanks so much for being here, and he looks forward to your ideas as we consider how to maintain organizational resilience for assets and projects over long spans of time so that we can progress instead of restarting. Now, when I talk about content being born digital, same thing with these assets. I just pulled out on the ground a box and put his slides on it. That's born digital, born virtual. And this means that digital archival is a huge, important topic, and it is expanding. In addition, Digital legacy is a rising concern. What happens to our content when we pass away? Most of you know someone in Second Life, if you've been here long enough, someone who died. And they had virtual assets, and sometimes that causes a problem. I'm going to open up now for discussion. Erik will be watching this and will definitely want to see what kind of feedback he gets from this amazing example that has sparked our interest. So as we continue in discussion, we can use local chat, which I will read aloud for the YouTube stream for closed caption and for Zoom, but you can also speak in Second Life voice as we go along. So I'm going to ask the first question. What did you think about his example of organizational resiliency and sustainability as it relates to the metaverse? Anyone?
Hello? May I speak instead of type?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
I recently, well, 5 months ago, had to deal with that last question, what do we do when somebody dies? Because we know that happens in Second Life, especially during COVID. I recently, 5 months ago, had to seriously face that. The good news is there was a way to do it with just a matter of a few steps. And Second Life has got it, considering that you've got inventory that you need to hang on to. This is only one possibility. I'm sure there will be others, but the Lindens have got it laid out. There is a, I guess it would be in the wiki. You can ask in support. It is a certain place where you can go, and it's how the Lindens lay out how to make sure somebody, how we will give access to your avatar to someone else. It's called When Somebody Goes, and it worked really well. I'm pleased to say I'm here, but at the time I only had a 10% chance of survival, and I only had 4 weeks to get ready. And it didn't take but 3 emails to get everything lined up. And I had the confidence that the right people would have access to my avatar and everything that I had done towards my project for security, individual security, and that for schools and entities in Second Life. So there is a process if you want to make sure the Lindens will allow you to allow someone else to have access and own all of your assets for an avatar of someone who has passed away.
Excellent. I'm so glad you brought up that the Lindens are working on this digital legacy piece and what happens when you pass away. And if any of you know speakers, perhaps I can get a Linden to come and talk about that. Contact me later, because this is really important. Many companies now have digital legacy policies in place, particularly social media apps. What happens, when you die with all of your social media? So we're looking for speakers to help talk about that. And, we were given Midori Linden as our liaison, and she is wonderful, and the support of Linden Labs at this space where we are right now. So we're greatly appreciative of that.
They would be an excellent one to brief you on it, and I learned about it through one of the members of Deaf Cafe. Her SL name is Gecko, and she actually helped the Lindens refine their process. But that is how I learned about the connection.
Wonderful. Did you see the question in local chat from Faust? Would that allow transfer on non-transferable items?
No, it does not allow transfer of non-transferable items. That's tied up in the designer or the build originator of that creation. You have got, because I have so many campuses of different ethnic style, they would be able to access my avatar to put them all out. And then when they were through, they would, of course, return them. But no, it does not change the non-transferable. The Lindens do not have that power. That resides in the individual that created it. that is a challenge, yes. But that was why I left my avatar, Kirsten, and all of her inventory to 2 individuals, so that the inventory could be used freely. So sorry, Faust, that non-transferable, that is to the individual, and the intellectual property and everything else that's wrapped up in builders and designers in Second Life.
And Max is asking, can the person who takes over the avatar reset the permissions?
Only on those things the avatar herself owns or is able to copy. I made sure I went through my inventory and I changed things that I was able to copy. I could not change them to transfer because you've got to say who you're going to transfer them to, and I didn't own the original copy because that was the designer thing again. So that's how it works as far as doing copy. Just make sure that you've got that set for the things you can set it to, and that was how I took care of it.
Excellent. And those of you that are sitting here, I wanted to ask if any of you have known someone in Second Life who passed away. And if you have an example of what happened, have you found it difficult because maybe you needed some of their assets in your own work or in your community, and the content was in the name of an avatar who's no longer living? Anybody want to speak to that?
The Lindens do allow for that. Again, that was in the process that I followed, and it is all, you have to do it ahead of time, and they're very helpful. They're not as scary as you would think. When you have to face that part and you know you may not be able to return, it is difficult unless you let the Lindens know ahead of time, you follow the process, you have the copies you give to the individuals who are going to have access. But they work very closely with you. But like they say, this isn't our first rodeo. We've had it happen a lot.
I would suggest a more forward-looking approach to resiliency. And y'all aren't thinking of the possibility of Second Life folding up and going away.
I hope not.
So if that ever happened, how would you move your digital assets out to Second Life and into another environment? I would suggest maybe considering creating assets outside of Second Life in a mode that is not specific to Second Life, like Mesh and PBR. They're more universal and more easily moved. If you create the assets outside of Second Life, then you can convert them, export them into different file types that can be used across more than one platform.
Excellent point coming up here from Bayan about different file types and not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. That's why VWEC is virtual worlds plural. Second Life is not the only virtual world. We're exploring the metaverse and how all of these formats will evolve so that we don't lose everything. We do have a speaker coming up pretty soon that will talk about this, but let's look at chat and see who else is asking a question about that. Dex is saying, I can relate this resiliency to Academia Electronica, which changed places a lot from 2007. The project was only funded for a few months by a university grant. However, we did not have such situation that people die and we need to take care of their assets. So if you haven't thought about this up front, that's when the problem comes, and they're all locked down to one individual name. And when Bayan said, the first thing I thought when you said, you know, you have it all in one place, there are many people working in the open sim worlds and saving their OR files, which can be downloaded and then re-uploaded to a new location. We just came across that problem in Kitely. We lost an entire huge area and had to move it all to another place. And so I'm going to put this in local chat. We have a speaker coming to talk about it. Some of you have heard of an avatar named Allie from the Arcadia Asylum Project. Anybody heard of Arcadia Asylum? She created all this amazing content, and then when she disappeared, they wanted to salvage it. Well, if you know Kayaker in Kitely, he's going to come talk this fall about virtual world archival in the open sim worlds with OR files. But there are other ways down the road that these formats will change. I think that's what Bayan was talking about, finding different formats to put your virtual world assets in so that they don't just disappear. Because Second Life is a proprietary company. Who knows what will happen in 5 years? This might not even be here. We hope it is, because Second Life is pretty amazing.
One more point. I don't mean to hog the conversation, but the permissions and ownership of assets are done at the database level on the asset server. Not that Linden's will, but they can and have in the past gone in and moved entire assets from one avatar to another to include the non-transferable assets, as long as they can prove that the person in real life is the same avatar you're moving from and to. They've done it on some occasions where the person was being stalked and harassed, and they had to create a brand new avatar to get away from the stalker. And in that point, they just went into the database, changed the permissions of the objects, and they just showed up on the other avatar. The other part of this is that, I don't know if anybody is familiar with OpenSim, but OpenSim, if you create an OpenSim and you happen to be hosting on a environment where the admins of OpenSim aren't, how shall I say this, ethical, they can go in and change the permission structure and take your creation right out from under you. That's one reason the Lindens are so, I guess, insistent on a solid permission structure and keeping it within Linden Labs, because they don't want to get into a liability situation where their lack of administration caused the theft of other person's digital assets.
Excellent point. The legalities of all of this, as well as the copyright and the intellectual property, all of these have to be thought out as we move forward, because the metaverse is rapidly expanding. And I think you might have seen Jade's comment about she had a person who died unexpectedly, a partner, and assets were stored in his inventory, and she was not allowed at all to get into the inventory. So there's, it's sad when these things happen. And you saw that I talked about Mike Higgins is going to come in the fall and do a presentation on this. But then Stable Mom is also saying that, agreeing with Kirsten, that Linden Labs is fairly good at supporting digital legacy where death is concerned. And so we will be following up on trying to get a speaker on that, because it's very important in the future. She also says there's traction amongst creators for shared accounts for companies and projects who need protected access to their assets. So this is moving forward. It just takes a lot of thought to balance the legalities, privacy, intellectual property with archival. And as Jade's saying, if people think about it ahead of time and plan for this, we're doing that now in Kitely, much more than we did 10 or 12 years ago. We didn't realize what was going to happen. I thought one thing that came to mind during Erik's talk, when he showed those photos of what was in his inventory, taking those pictures is a way to archive. How many of you have archived your virtual world projects through taking Second Life pictures, images, also through Machinima? And Dodge is saying that at Nova, they have most things saved to the group, so people and the group can access it. And that is important, but also requires balance, because if you are really, really free with allowing a lot of people access, accidents can happen if you deed everything to group. So there's that balance between knowing and trusting people with your perms and giving enough access so people can get what they need. That takes it's kind of a balancing act, isn't it? Because someone real new might have an accident, they have perms and they don't even realize the power they've been given. And I see, yes, some people are taking pictures of the content that they are creating or taking machinima. Stable Mom says, I save a copy to inventory and share it with other builders of the project when able. But saving as images or video allows you to share how you wanted a project to be seen, which is lovely. So, and then of course, organizing those videos, if you take a lot of them, labeling them, or you'll never find them again, so organizing your photos and putting them. Archivists usually say, if you want to archive digital content, put it in 2 different places and in 2 different formats, because formats, both the software and the hardware to read those assets, are changing. And down the road, things will become obsolete. So 2 different formats, 2 different places. And Meryl is copying that about Linden Labs being good at supporting digital legacies. We're going to follow up on that on the expert series and balance privacy, intellectual property, ownership, all of that. And as you saw during this talk, balancing the physical world and the virtual world. Another problem that we have is things like what happened to Erik today. He comes to this presentation and finds out that his university has blocked it with a firewall. So what do? Do we all panic and say, we got to cancel? No, we figure out a way to do it. We're talking for him. It's shared on Zoom. He can't share his slides because he doesn't have access to the things he needs. So we just pull it up on a prim. We learn to help each other out with all of this as we're learning how to archive for the future. Dex says you could go to Karlsruhe Technology University where they can read the forbidden formats. Now that's an intriguing comment. I have followed for years a person in Europe who, and you can find it on Twitter X, it's the Museum of Obsolete Media. And on the Museum of Obsolete Media, he gathers all kinds of old gadgets and all the old kinds of computers, floppy disks, 8 tracks, VHS, beta, everything that we've had information on. And then he takes pictures of it. He tries to salvage so that as things evolve, we can see the trail of obsolete media. We also have the history of computers here in Second Life that shows that in 3D. And Nellie on Zoom is saying collaboration in Second Life is amazing. And I like to say it's essential, because without collaboration here, why bother? No one's going to see what you're making. You're out in isolation and you're trying to recreate the wheel. Someone else has already done it. So that's the whole point of this consortium. Some of the people sitting right here, such as Caledon and Rockcliffe and Virtual Ability, some of those sims have amazing orientation paths. Why should we create a new one? Up at our landing point, there's a portal to all those places. So when a newcomer lands, they can pick and go through those orientation paths, and we're not recreating the wheel. We're providing pathways to what's already been accomplished. That is resiliency and sustainability in 3D. Dex is saying many computer technology museums are able to take old data and restore it to its glory. He has a place about 25 kilometers from his location in real life. So true. Years ago, it was difficult, but now you can take your VHS tapes and your old media, and they are able to take that and put it in a new format. The problem is, if it's already been broken and destroyed, there's no way to get it back if it's corrupted. So if you have those, you want to preserve them in another format. Feel free to speak in voice if anyone has another, if this is sparking your interest, because organizational resiliency and project continuity, think of all the other things that come to mind besides digital legacy and digital archival. These are all concepts that we could bring in speakers to help us, because we cannot learn how to solve these problems alone.
Val, Dodge brought up a point that he said with Nova, they share the projects so that everyone can have access to it. But I still think that someone has to be appointed like the alternative administrator of your group or something, so that they can have full rights. I had to do that with an alt. I had to give her full, complete rights, but she can't get into my inventory, so that's a problem. So Dodge says that by sharing it, maybe that's got to be a way that you think about doing it, is that you have it shared within the group.
Yes, sharing with the group, deeding objects to the group, and having, many of the educational groups, and Midori has sort of given us permission to do this, because, we don't want trolls and griefers and people who are not good digital citizens. They're not who they say they are. But she's allowed us to create an avatar that is the manager of this sim. So that, let's say I'm not around in a couple of years, or Becky Adams isn't around, or Dodge is not around, or whoever our leaders are, that avatar can be handed off to another person who wants that leadership role. So there's different ways to go about that, but we want to be transparent and upfront about it, not be tricksters that aren't who they say they are. And that's my passion. I'm trying to teach the next generation, what does it mean to be a digital citizen?
I could just share that we're giving our professors into that group, and one of them destroyed a building. So all totally by accident. It took us 3 days to rebuild it. So it's a very restricted group that has access to everything. Like 5 people are in that group, so you don't want to share it widely.
Yes, great that you clarified that, Dodge. It's so important, because even if you trust the person, I'll just go ahead and tell you, I made a big mistake because I had really big powers that amazing Selby Evans, the thinkerer, gave me, and I accidentally just got rid of a whole bunch of things, assets. And Second Life came to the rescue, took me back in time, salvaged it all, and Selby just said, I have made worse mistakes. It was amazing. But a person with good intentions can make a big mistake. So you want to be careful how you grant those perms, to who, and that they're ready for that kind of power, because there is a learning curve here. And so, it's kind of a balance between giving power to people, trusting them, and knowing their ability.
One thing that builds resilience at a university or higher ed institution is the number of faculty and students using it. And as you increase the number of faculty and students that are using that region and the programs and things there, the institution's more likely to fund it, not pull funding away. If they say there's nobody using it, or just one person's using it or something like that, sometimes it's hard to maintain funding, especially when that person retires.
Another good point, because some of us have been here a long time and others are fairly new, and there's that change in lifestyle when some people retire, and so we all have to kind of support each other in matching our goals. And that is why VWEC has our directories of not just communities and people and their interests, because people are resources and so are communities. And we're also working on a landmark directory. That's been something we've been trying for years to get, and together we can all build it. That's part of sustainability as well. Because have you ever been in Second Life and gone to a location and it's a ghost town, nobody's there, and it's just dormant, or it doesn't even exist anymore? So, keeping up with that can be a little bit difficult. Jan Loria is a good example of someone who goes and checks, and tries to make things sustainable. Yes, Dodge, if there's anything else you want to say about faculty and institutional funding. Merrill is working on our new scholarly magazine to help administrators see the potential here, because even with Second Life being 20 years old, there's still that idea that this is not really something that they want for their students. They don't realize the potential. And one way to promote that, well, the magazine's one way, but also our YouTube playlists. Many of your communities we have subscribed to, and we're sharing your machinima so that administrators, other teachers, faculty can see what's been done, as well as the student challenge, which shows what students have done. If you've not been up to our landing point, we now have student research projects right up there on display, so faculty can see this is serious, high quality learning for students. I think my takeaway from Erik's talk was the idea of taking what you built years ago and adding to it, bringing it out, repurposing it, maybe changing it somewhat, but continued reworking of your virtual assets. That was a really great point. Let's see if we missed any questions or comments in the local chat. Feel free to repeat them or just open up your mic and speak in voice. If you have any concerns about the future, one problem I struggle with is there are too many worlds out there. We can't be in all of them. And so many people are trying to find the VR headset worlds because they kind of think the metaverse means a headset, which it does not. I prefer desktop VR. So all of these different things sort of are happening at the same time, and they're all part of project continuity.
One thing we do at NO also to maintain continuity is to keep the president, the vice president for academia, totally aware of what we're doing. If they don't know what you're doing when they do budgeting and stuff, you might not be included in it. So it's really important to keep the top people knowing what you're doing and maintaining that funding.
The question, okay, yes, the chat, that was, saving the chat from Zoom. I hope Nellie's very good at archiving her Zoom sessions and the chat. She's saying she can't save the chat in Zoom, but the recording will be there, and I'll save the chat here, and I can certainly send that to whoever wants it. I think this text chat will help us think about other expert series speakers would like to have in the future.
Val, I put a comment in, this is Wordsmith. I put a comment in chat that even offsite archiving isn't one shot and requires ongoing efforts as formats change. For instance, Blender 4.2 now considers collada files, which is the normal way of importing to Second Life, to be a legacy. And at some point will be discontinued.
Yes, media formats. Once again, the problem of them changing. Right now, MP4s and MP3s, everybody knows those. MP4s is the best thing to upload to YouTube, MP3s for audio. That's not going to be forever. That's going to change. And there are hundreds of kind of formats out there for audio and video, and those are changing also for virtual assets. So that's really have to think about that as we're building, or we lose it.
Bayan, I'm not certain if you're asking what format they're going to be saving, but I brought up the question to Midori when she spoke about 2 months ago on the mobile app, and they are trying to develop within Second Life the ability to go from the phone or from one laptop to your desktop and everything and still have a consistency in saved chats, which would be a blessing. Because it was always difficult if you went from one computer to the next, your chats didn't go with you, and so you could never remember where you talked to someone about something. It was someplace else. And if it's on your phone, that's not going to be on your laptop. So they are trying to work on that. I don't know how they're going to perfect it, but God, that's going to be excellent.
Oh, and Bayan was talking about the collada and those files like in the open source worlds. If the collada file is no longer the main way to save things, and so it's something new, will we be able to convert collada files and upgrade them to the next format? That's something maybe when we have the talk with Kayaker, who has archived a lot of Arcadia Asylum's work in Kitely and the Open Sims. And I think this is another example of how we have to have collaboration, because there are Kayaker teaches Blender in Kitely. And we have a lot of people like Day Miami who create in VR and works in Unity. Not all of us can learn every skill, but together we can have a talk like this and at least be aware of the skills that are necessary to archive our work, and we can help each other. And we try to share classes here. We partner with Builders Brewery and others. So if there is a skill you want to learn, we can point you in that direction. We're also working on maybe helping people with machinima. We're thrilled to have Fran, who's great at it, Spiff, and others, so that if you want to learn that, you can come to us and we'll help you, because none of us can learn everything. Learn what you want to learn, what you're excited to learn. I'm going to check my speakeasy. As you can tell, we really changed a lot in what we were doing today because of the technology troubleshooting that we had. We're getting close to the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and say a few things in closing, and then we'll stay and discuss a little bit more if you choose to. I want to thank everybody for attending today, for being patient with the glitches. And I really want to say a thank you to Erik when I talk to him next for going ahead with it, even with a firewall blocking him. Remember that you can find the recording on our YouTube channel. We are going to have no more events in August, but we will be on the MOOC. This beautiful VWEC Edgeverse Plaza will be shared on 2 weeks from today on August 23rd. And the calendar to the MOOC, I'll give you here in local chat as well. Then in September, we have a topic coming up. We'll have a couple of sessions in September that will be on the calendar. You can find us on social media. I'll put those here in the local chat. On all the different various social media platforms. Be sure you've signed up for the survey in the planter that's just to my left there on the ground. How you found us and what social media you like to use. And we're going to follow up today by looking through this chat on some other topics that we feel would go along with this series, Social Continuity in the Metaverse. So please contact me later if you can think of a speaker that might be good at talking about the future and anything that relates to organizational resiliency and project continuity. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you again here soon. I'd like to invite you all to stand and follow me over to the area by the balloons, and we'll just continue our conversation if there's anyone who would like to, but it's almost time for the Zoom session to end, so I wanted to just say goodbye to everyone, but you can come stand around here, grab a glass of wine or something like that, and we will continue our conversation on the future of archival in the metaverse. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Nellie, for sharing this on the VWMOOC 2024. Please bookmark that or save that link so you can see all the great sessions that are coming up all month long. I'll put it in local chat one more time.